purposes, home equity conversion mortgage, or these HECM loans, are for refinances, and reverse mortgages are for purchases, but they're essentially the same thing. And what I've experienced over the years is there seems to be a negative connotation to reverse mortgage.
Right.
So people tend to shy away from it. Now, I remember going back a bunch of years into the 90s, that they seemed to be very expensive and people didn't want to do them for a variety of reasons. But what I understand is that the programs have changed substantially. They're much more affordable, and I've recently closed a HECM loan, and I know it worked very well for the client. So
Right.
What can you tell me about some of the changes, or what would remove some of that negative connotation to help these seniors and stay in their home?
Okay. One of the biggest changes is that HUD, which is the Housing and Urban Development, has taken it over. So FHA regulates the reverse and the HECM mortgages. So they are, specific lenders have the authorization to provide these types of loans. So FHA is going to regulate them. They put set standards on the amount of cost that people can charge or brokers can charge to the consumer. The other nice thing about it is when you're looking into doing a HECM or a reverse mortgage, you also are required to take a counseling course. It can be on the telephone or it can be on the internet, but it is another added step to ensure that the client has been advised, and it's a third party. It's not the lender, so it would be a third party. So FHA is definitely watching out for the seniors to make sure that they are not taken advantage of.
That's great. And that's what part of the issues has always been.
Right.
You have the heirs saying, what happened at mom and dad? Where's all the equity in our home? And so I think some of the obstacles to getting these loans done are typically family members, people who are looking forward to inheriting some equity. And by doing this equity conversion mortgage, they might lose out on that. But what I've advised the senior client is, hey, look out for yourself first. And it's great
Right.
to take care of your children, and that's wonderful. But let's make sure you're cared for while you're alive,
Right.
and deal with your passing when the time comes.
And that does bring up a good point, John, is as far as the equity, because a lot of family members do feel sometimes that as soon as somebody does a HECM or a reverse mortgage, the bank now owns the home, and that's not necessarily true as long as the equity grows in that home.
Right, and that is also an important point. The good news, as I understand it from these loans, is that the homeowner, the senior in this case, has no liability for the monthly payments, and that liability is not passed on to the heirs either.
Right.
Now, the debt, like any other debt, would have to be paid, and the heirs would have the opportunity to either, assuming they inherit the property, sell the home and pay off the debt, or refinance and pay off the debt. And it is not automatic, as you say, that the bank has not purchased the home. They've just made a loan against it. And that loan can be paid off. There's typically, is it correct to say there's no penalties in the prepayment?
Correct. No prepayment penalties.
Okay, so they can go ahead and pay off the loan at any time, and yet now the homeowner, the senior, doesn't have this monthly mortgage payment and this obligation. Is
Right.
that-
Yep.
And I know I explain it this way, and I know this isn't the proper way, but it seems to make it a little easier for the clients that I'm working with when you talk about reverse mortgage and loans at age 65 or whatever. And I said it would be in some ways similar to borrowing against your own 401k. They kind of get that, where you're just pulling your own money
Right.
out, and you have the choice of putting money back into your 401k, and usually you have to pay a little bit of an interest because you've borrowed it, you've taken it out. But it was your money to start with, and it's up to you whether you want to put the money back in or make payments to put it back in or just leave it out totally. And they kind of get that. So then when I'm explaining the HECM loans or the reverse mortgages, it kind of makes more sense that they're borrowing their own money, technically. And so they have the option of not necessarily making a payment every month like you would on a traditional mortgage.
Correct.
They don't have to pay it back. If they don't pay it back that year, that particular interest just goes at the end of the loan. So when they sell their home or whatever, they're owing that interest for the year if they decide for a whole year they don't want to pay it back. So it has its advantages for a lot of circumstances.
Absolutely.
The thing is that you just need to know, does that fit my lifestyle or perhaps another type of loan? So what other kind of a loan could a senior receive if they're living in the home?
If they're living in their current home, they say, for example, they already have a mortgage on it and we're wanting to do the home improvements, they could do a full-on refinance and get cash out on that particular loan. So they have still one full loan, new interest rate and new terms. Mm-hmm. Or they could do something like a home equity, leave the mortgage that they currently have and do a second mortgage on top of it to pull out a lump sum amount of cash, or they can do something like a line of credit. Mm-hmm. And again, or the reverse or the HECM. The other option would be to maybe look at some finances or some assets that they have in, like, for example, their 401k. Now that they're at 62, it is now, able to be used. Sometimes you can borrow against those funds, just like you were mentioning.
That's what we like about you, Carolyn. You advise people on things that have really nothing to do with your business. I mean, you're there to help them find loans.
Right.
But if it makes more sense for them to borrow against their 401k or their stocks or something, you'll tell them about that, and as an advisor, and that's
Absolutely.
what we're all about. Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
And one of the advantages to doing a straight-out refi and paying off your current loan with the new loan, I guess one of the advantages, of course, if the interest rate is lower,
right,
it's also going to extend out the term, which may have the effect of lowering their payment ultimately. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then the only downside really would be, of course, you're extending out the term, and there are some costs involved with it. So
yes.
Is there any type of rule of thumb with an interest rate? I remember years ago there seemed to be, but I don't know if that still kind of exists as to cost and lowering your interest rate, making it worth your while to refinance.
If we had to put a number on it, I've always told people it's between 1% and 2%, but we always do the math and we run the whole scenario. And again, we find out from them what their goals are. How long are they going to be in the home? How old are they? Do they plan on selling it? Is this their primary? Is it an investor? And we have to do the math as well, because if it's a higher mortgage, sometimes a lower difference, if it's 0.5% or 0.75% can make a big difference for somebody.
Right.
So not necessarily, if it's a quarter or a half lower might be an advantage. And then vice versa for some people, they see, oh, wow, it's lower. It's only, it's a quarter or 0.5%. I should refinance. And it doesn't always fit them. It's going to be more costly for them after we do the math.
Right. In other words, determining, as you had said, how long do you plan to be in the house? If you're going to be there 1 or 2 years and it's going to take you 4 years to recoup your expenses,
Exactly.
It doesn't really make sense.
Right.
If your plan is to be there for 10 years and in 3 years you're going to recoup your expenses, then for the next 7 to 30 years you're going to be saving money. So that's great. For people and let them know and advise them properly.
Exactly. You've been listening to Carolyn Wolf, Senior Mortgage Planner with Certified Mortgage Planners. Give us your contact information again, because I know there's questions out there right now. People are dying to ask you.
Okay, my phone number is area code 321-795-9103. Or you can also send me an email at Carolyn, CAROLYN, at FloridaLendingPro.com.
That's Carolyn at FloridaLendingPro.com. Now, you're in you're in Indian Harbor Beach.
Indian Harbor Beach, correct.
Florida. However, you can provide loans anywhere in Florida.
Just like John, anywhere. And I also wanted to mention, like John and Florida, we are the Sunshine State and we have a lot of snowbirds. So a lot of our clients are actually going to be out-of-towners, maybe living in New York or Boston, but they have property here. We can help all throughout Florida.
The one thing that we hadn't spoke about earlier, but it just brings that up, if there are snowbirds, and especially, let's say, Canadians that are coming down, how does that affect mortgages? There are mortgages out there, but that's a whole different show, I'm sure. But can we highlight a few things that perhaps our out-of-country buyers would need to know?
Absolutely. There's a few different programs that they can do, but primarily it's called a foreign national program. But we can definitely lend to foreign nationals. Depending, some of them do have temporary visas, or it kind of depends on what kind of entry they have. But we definitely have all kinds of different programs for them.
That would be another thing that most banks don't have. I don't think a lot of the banks have just strictly foreign mortgages, and that's something you find from a mortgage broker, which
Correct.
we've discussed, that you are the mortgage broker. You have probably dozens, if not hundreds, of mortgages that you can find.
Right.
Or in most banks, your ABC Bank, your what they used to be the First National Trust Bank years ago, those kind of names, they're only going to have one or two, and they're in-house, and they're not as flexible because that's not predominantly what banks are there for. They're there for general services like checking and money markets and different things. So they have these as special services, but that's not their forte of mortgages.
Exactly.
So
now, one of the things we talked about, again, we've been on this should I stay or should I go, but let's assume now we've spoken with the parents and we've decided that it is in their best interest to leave. So now the parent says, okay, John, let's sell our house and move into a new one. But unfortunately, maybe they need to borrow money to move into the new home. Mm-hmm. So what are there programs out there for seniors, or what type of obstacles might you see for a senior looking to buy a home, the newer downsized home, but a new home?
Okay, so if we have a senior who's looking to sell and they're over 62, we have a couple options. They could sell theirs, pay off their mortgage, have that cash equity available, and put it down and get another regular mortgage. They can amortize it a 10-year, 15, 20, or 30. Or if having a conversation with the family, they've decided they're downsizing and it would be wonderful not to even have a mortgage payment, then we can also look into the option of the HECM or the reverse mortgage purchase.
You know, one of the things we didn't discuss, but we're seeing it a lot with condos and some homes as well, but there's condos that are 20, 30 years old, and all of a sudden now they're getting assessed. So here's somebody that has paid cash for their condominium 15 years ago, and it might be a 25 or 30-year-old condominium, and all of a sudden they're getting assessed $25,000, $50,000.
Yeah.
So do they take it out of their retirement fund, or do they go and get a HECM loan? And that's something we weigh against, too.
Absolutely.
Are they making more in their stock portfolio or something, and it makes more sense to keep it there and take out a HECM loan than it would be to cash out? One of the things that we didn't discuss, but I think it's important, is a lot of time grandparents want to provide for their grandchildren's college education. And this is another way that they can pull money out of their account to provide for college education for their grandchildren.
Right.
So there's all kinds of things out there that are available. Any other, what's the most popular loan that you're seeing right now coming across your desk?
Well, I would say, Florida is hopping. I mean, we're doing a lot of purchases, but a lot of refinances as well. I mean, the interest rates right now are really very favorable. So it's really a mixed bag, to be honest.
So if we're staying with the senior topic, for seniors, especially since they're not working technically, what are the qualifications that they need to qualify for a loan, since they don't technically have any income to show?
Great question, Jean, but they actually, in my opinion, have some great income because they have pensions and Social Security. Some have VA eligibility, so they have their pensions from the military, or they have a 401k that they're now withdrawing from. So that's what we use, is either Social Security or any type of retirement pension. And sometimes people have set up systematic withdrawals from their investment where they take out X amount of dollars a month.
So they can actually set it up where they get a payment every month, as opposed to making a payment that would be under the HECM loans or some of the other equity loans. Give us your number again, your license number, because I know you have to say that to be official.
Thank you. My license number, my NMLS number is 268538.
And one more time, how people can reach you, and you're anywhere in the state of Florida, you can help them out.
Carolyn Wolf, 321-795-9103.
And for that private free advisory, let's start with contacting Jonathan Lack, and from there he can advise who else in perhaps his office could help you. Jonathan, my co-host, my esteemed co-host, please give out your information.
All right. Well, you can reach me. Again, the law office is Lack & Lack Chartered, and our phone number is area code 321-953-5115, or on the web at lacklaw.com. That's LACKLAW.com.
Carolyn, can you join us again in about 2 weeks, because we have more information and we always have lots of questions that people ask?
Absolutely. And maybe we can talk a little bit about VA and veterans and different lending products.
Oh, that would be great. So stay tuned, because next week we will have our Brevard tax assessor, Dana Blakely, and she will be on talking about taxes, your property taxes and so forth. Thanks for joining us on Your Hometown Solution.